This is Out of the Woodwork. I'm Tommy. I'm going to show you how to use a speed square and a bevel gauge to find angles in your woodworking. I'm working on some built-ins and I need to build the cabinets to fit into a space, and that space has a fairly steep angle on it that I need to capture and transfer to my cabinet side here. So let's just say from the floor up to where the angle begins is at this mark, or better yet, the height of this side needs to be before its angle starts is, say, here. Now the first thing on site that I need to do is capture the angle. And I did that with a bevel gauge. This is a bevel gauge that's got a blade on it, and these two sides are parallel to each other, and the handle is parallel, and that's important when you're using a bevel gauge so that when you capture an angle, especially when it's fully extended, that angle will be the same on the outside, and you can also have the same angle on the inside, so you can mark it either side. But I took the bevel gauge and I put it up against the wall, and then I moved it up and down until it was flush with the wall, tighten it up, and that's your angle. And then you can transfer that to wherever you need to. So back at our cabinet side here, what I want to do is take the speed square at the line that we measured. We want to strike a 90-degree line, and this is what everything is going to reference off of. So a speed square is, as its name suggests, it's first and foremost a square, which that's a 90-degree side. It's got this little base that registers nice and flat against a surface, assuming that surface is nice and flat. And then it can also be used as a protractor. You see this pivot point here. Assuming that's at a correct point, you pivot this until it registers on the flat surface, and that's your angle. So let's transfer. This is our measurement. We want to line that up on the inside right where those two meet. And a tip, put your pencil in place and then slide the bevel up to it, and that will let you allow for your pencil line. So I strike my line. This is the part we need to keep, and this is the part we're going to cut out. So this is the angle, the pitch of the roof, and we're cutting the side to follow that pitch and stay under it. So let's say I need to measure this angle for whatever reason. I need to know the actual degrees. Well, the speed square can also act as a protractor. So I'm again registering the base up against that flat side, and then I'm putting this pivot point right at my measurement and keeping that pivot point secure and make sure it doesn't move. I rotate it to meet the line, and we'll just make sure that line is in the same place all the way up and down. And then I look over here and I see that it's exactly 35 degrees. So what does that mean? We've figured out it's 35 degrees, but what is 35 degrees? Because we've got an angle here, we got an angle here, and then we've still got this 90 over here. Well, it's important to note, and I don't see this said a lot when talking about a speed square, is as a protractor, the speed square is measuring an angle in reference to the 90-degree line. So with the speed square, it's in the shape of a 90-degree angle. It's measuring everything here on this side, and as you tilt it down, it's measuring the angle from this line to wherever you stop. This is a 35-degree angle. Now, why is that important? Well, for miters, it usually isn't, because you've got the edge of a board, which that is your 90-degree reference. And so when you do this, say, okay, that's 35 degrees. I bring it down to 35 degrees. I make sure my pivot point's lined up. Strike a line. And that's what I need to cut out to have a 35-degree miter. But you're referencing against this end here, which hope is 90 degrees and flat. So if I need to figure out the angle that the remaining board is going to be, so that would be all of this, then I just take this side, which is 90, and add to my angle that I just measured, and I get 125 degrees. So the remaining board, the inside angle there is going to be 125 degrees. And then we can also easily find out the part that we're cutting away by taking, since this is 90, we're taking 90 minus 35, which is 55 degrees. So we're cutting away a 55-degree angle there. This is an angle finder, and generally you'll find a digital gauge like this one on an angle finder, which makes it really easy. So we can check our measurements here. You see we're right at 125.2.3. So let's talk about the bevel gauge a little more. It's got this slot so it can slide for length. And then, as shown before, it can tilt up and down for different angles. So why would you need to lengthen and shorten it? Well, if you're capturing an angle such as this, and you register it against the board, and you get your angle flush, but you also want the length, then you shorten that to meet how long that angle is. And once you tighten it up, then you've got a really good representation of not only the angle, but also the length of that piece that's angled. The speed square has several other uses. Let's talk about the ones that are most useful to carpenters that are doing framing. These common cuts and hip valley cuts, these are all quick references for cutting rafters. And these numbers represent the pitch. So this is an 8/12 pitch, 6/12 pitch, and so on. A couple other features you might find yourself using is the rule on top, which is right at 7 inches, a little more than 7 inches. If you got 2x4s, which are most often used as studs, that will reach across 2x4s, and you can strike lines across both of them at the same time. But you can use this to hold the rule up to, if we started our line here and we want a 3-inch line there, very convenient to do that. There's also a different model of speed square that has scribe notches here. They're little notches that will fit your pencil to keep it from moving around so you can make scribe marks. But in this speed square, you can do the same thing. You've just got to try to keep your pencil stable. So if I want to make from the edge here, if I want to make a 1-inch line a certain distance, then I put my pencil up against that 1-inch line, hold it really steady, and then just, it's already moving. And then just slowly take it across, and I've got a 1-inch, scribed a 1-inch line. And then of course you see that this is slanted here. That is a 45-degree angle, so you've got a very quick 45-degree measurement. And then you could also, a little less accurate, mark a 45 by lining the 45-degree up here, here, and strike a line. So this would be 45, and that would be 45. So let's say you're following a set of plans and it calls for a 40-degree miter in the end of this 2x4. Well, the first and most obvious way to do this is to use your speed square, line it up, get it on 40 degrees, strike a line, and then cut it out. Now, that's a perfectly valid way to do it, but usually you've got more than one to cut. And a better way to do this and to be more accurate from cut to cut is to use your bevel gauge. So I'm going to show you how to do that and how quick it goes, and then we'll step back and talk about what I did. We start with the speed square at 40 degrees, mark that line, and then we're going to set our bevel gauge to the inside angle, bring that up, transfer it to the piece of wood, strike a line, and then we'll cut this part out, and that gives us a 40-degree miter. Now, the most important thing to remember here is that a miter cut is measured by the part that you cut out. So even though we're left with a 50-degree angle here, it's the 40-degree part that we cut out that makes this a 40-degree miter. So let me draw this 90-degree reference here. 40 degrees, 90 minus 40 is 50. And if you notice, I set the bevel gauge to 50 degrees. So you might be wondering, how did that help me transfer the 40 degrees? Well, since this is 50 degrees here, what we did was recreate this diagram. So this 90-degree reference is actually the end of the board. And just like I put the bevel up on the angle like this, we recreated that on this piece of wood. So the 50-degree angle being down here and the 40-degree angle being up here. Remove the 40-degree piece, and that's your miter joint. Let's talk about another situation that you might run into. So if you need to measure an angle that is inaccessible. So say I needed to measure the end of this 2x4, but it's attached, and obviously I can't remove it to measure that angle. So what you do is take a bevel gauge, assuming you've got access to get a bevel gauge in here, push it up there flush, and then you're going to turn around and transfer that somewhere where you can measure it, like we have been. So we can take speed square, line it up. So again, for reference, we'll draw this 90-degree line. You don't have to. So this angle here is a 15-degree angle. Now that may seem unintuitive. It may seem like because we measured with the bevel gauge like this, that whatever's left over here should be the angle, but that's not the case. And we can draw a little line here to illustrate that. Because what we're actually measuring is only this angle in reference to if it was flat, 90 degrees. So you can see how that matches up. If you've got more tips about using a speed square or a bevel gauge or finding angles in woodworking, put those down in the comments. If you're just getting started in woodworking and DIY, or if you're interested, there's a free download down in the description that you might find helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. There's more videos on the screen if you want to watch those. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.